All right. So, Ricardo, you have a couple shows you want to talk about here, right? So, the first one
Oh, right.
being Asterix and Obelisk. Well, all right. Well, you'll have to tell me if this is like a new series or a new feature, something like
Yeah,
that. But to be
right.
honest, this is probably blasphemy on my part, right? But I have never really taken the time to really like learn about that series, or at least that IP, if you will, right? It was just
Right.
always something that was on my to-do list or to watch list or whatever, but I just never got around to it, right? But I know about the praise and acclaim it got, right? But I just didn't get the time, haven't made the time as yet, right? So hopefully with this review here of this new, project, if you will, maybe, I might, it most likely will motivate me to at least jump into this, world, right? Afterwards, you will talk about a movie that unfortunately I did not get a chance to watch, even though I propose to you that we talk about it here on this program here. That will be Death of a Unicorn. The only things I know about it is that it's from, A24. It stars Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd. And it may or may not involve unicorns. That's really all I know, right? But yeah, unfortunately, I just did not get a chance to watch that because, life and Star Wars stuff, right? Got anyway, right? But yeah, I will shut up now. So yeah, Ricardo, take it away. Asterix and Obelix, followed by Death of a Unicorn.
Right. So yeah, so we can Asterix and Obelix. Yeah, it's
Okay, I'm sorry for butchering it. I'm sorry. See again, I
all
don't
the
know. Yeah.
all the jokes and character names mean something. Like it's a bunch of puns and jokes. So like the main guy who's kind of the Merlin figure, but he's a really a druid, and he's fixed all the problems. His name is Getafix. And like the main, like the chief is vital statistics. There's all these jokes. It's all the same jokes. There's a bunch of puns and references, and yeah, all of it is like this comic. I forget when it came out in the '60s, I think. For me, I was not a super Asterix fan, but my mom bought a couple of these with Tintin books as well, and so I was into those like, a little bit in as a kid. But yeah, these was like a kind of. I always read these as kind of critiques of. Well, the joke is that it's the last Gaul village surviving against the Roman Empire, and the running kind of implicit social commentary I was kind of read from it at least is that yeah, it's a critique of fascist Italy to a certain extent. And it's conceits, and it is a French comic that making a lot of jokes, or probably also like making fun of Nazis as well. It had like a social commentary undertone to the whole thing in terms of freedom and empire and whatever. And this one kind of plays with that. So what they do with this one is that they get into the backstory. We actually, well, I don't remember ever seeing this in any comic or whatever it is, but they get into the backstory of how Obelix got his strength. So in the narrative, uh, they trying to the wizard get a fix makes the potion for the first time, but you find out that Obelix is the one who actually solved the problem because he did something that put a secret ingredient and actually made the potion for the origin. And then but what happens is that when he fell into the potion, the original version of the potion, he fell into it itself. While so the effects of the potion is indefinite in him. And this potion is basically give you super strength and super speed, and that's how they hold off the Romans for so long because they have this potion that allowed them to beat back everybody, and that is basically it. So this story is all about that back and forth about the relationship with them. It have a history with that, another old goal. It's a bunch of old jokes and references, and it's pretty great. The main kind of character, other than Asterix, is another character from the Roman side, a character called Metadata, who's constantly confused with the term Wikipedia, and they make a bunch of jokes there. There's a bunch of needle drops, and it really feels as if, well, what if Illumination made Asterix and Obelix movie? That's it. They made a bunch of references to the Avengers. There's a bunch of jokes in pop culture, a bunch of needle drops, and it was short. This could have been a movie actually. Each episode is like roughly, I don't know, 30 minutes or so. It's about 5 episodes. It's short, so I thought this could have been a movie. But like I get why they chop it up because it's still for kids. So like children attention span wouldn't be this long. But I thought this was pretty good. It's a lot of fun. They resolved the plot line in a way, in a nice satisfied way, in my opinion. Again, a lot of just classic humor, but almost as if again Illumination makes it because it's a bunch of references. They have a whole side plot involving Getafix loses memory. They explain why that was relevant to the plotline later, and the Romans taking over and all of that. And I thought this was nice and charming. Just on Netflix. in and out 5 episodes. They make it work for what it is, and I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I was surprised. It's actually pretty good, all things considered. Yeah, so yeah, rating, yeah, pretty high actually. I didn't think I would enjoy this as much as I did. Yeah, like a good, well, 8 out of 10. It's pretty good for what it was. If you're bored with it, I get why you might be tired of it. All things considered, but no, it was fine. Yeah, so yeah, Asterix and Obelix, the big fight, pretty good stuff. I thought good voice acting, funny stuff. They make it work. This probably would make an honorable mention by the end of the year, and I thought this was pretty, like, surprisingly good.
Wow,
Didn't
wow.
waste time. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I dug the hell out of it. So for what it was. Yeah, that's it.
All right. So just quick question before as you go into Death of a Unicorn. Does it really involve the death of a unicorn?
Yes, it does.
All
Well,
right.
kind of. But
Okay. Okay.
you, you'll see what it is. So that of a unicorn. This was slightly disappointing for me. So wait about. So basically, it's these it is Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, the father and daughter. They drive in. Were they father and daughter? I can't remember exactly. They drive in to the like uh the family has like a weekend estate with Elliot's boss. There's Paul Rudd's boss. He and then they ran over a unicorn like a baby with a car, and then it dies. And it so when Adriana Ortega touches the unicorn, she goes into like a weird trance, and you realize that it's the blood that the exposure to the dead unicorn cause all kind of things, and it solves a bunch of medical problems, and it's just a whole like metaphor for like all these exploitation of nature and exploitation of creatures and whatever it is, and then they learn everything they need to know about the unicorns, and they go back and forth about it, and that's pretty much it. It's the rich family and the guy and them exploiting the unicorn's body and wealth for what it is, and the whole thing is about that, and then you learn that the unicorn is well. This might slight spoiler, but the unicorn is not alone. That's all we'll say. And I thought this was surprisingly boring. Right, I didn't think I thought it was not particularly funny. I'm sure I have people who like it, and that type of humor might work for them. But this just kind of fell flat for me. It was all right. It just I don't know. It just could have been the back and forth. Surprisingly, Ortega, who's usually a professional, she's pretty good in this. For all things considered, she and Paul Rudd don't really have good chemistry. I thought that was like the big letdown. I thought, oh, the two of them will bounce off each other well. Nope, that wasn't particularly good. But the satire of it is not great. Like I get what they're trying to say and what they're trying to do, but it's not particularly funny or engaging. And yeah, this was just fell flat for me. Like it's another thing too is that the production looked kind of bad. Like a lot of the special effects not great. Like it does feel a little unfinished, and it's like yeah, they should have really like I don't know, for lack of a better term, just kind of let this cook a little more, punch it up a little bit. And yeah, this just didn't work for me. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It could have been better. Will Poulter is in this. He's good, kind of. That's about it. But yeah, I really wish they did more with it. It just was just I was surprisingly bored with it, all things considered, and I really felt they could have just punched up the script. Like if they just punch up the humor and had it bounce off each other a little better, it might have worked. All things considered. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing much else to say. All things considered, it was just a big disappointment for me. You could watch it and give me another review on when you get the time. But yeah, I was just underwhelmed with this, all things considered. I'm so nice about it for me. Not much to say. It was just like, all right, in and out for me. It really felt like an in and out movie. And I was surprised given it's a 84 film now. But it reminded me of that movie with what's your name? With Ray Fiennes and Ayo Edebiri. Like it's a good idea kind of, but like it just kind of fall flat. Another kind of disappointed E24 film. So I don't know what
Or
they did with that.
Opus. No, Ray
Opus,
Fiennes
right?
wasn't in it. It was John
Sorry,
Malkovich
not Ray
actually.
Fiennes. John Malkovich. So sorry about
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
but
But yeah,
that was all
it's
about to ask. So if it's just another, like I don't want to put the blame on E24, right? But is
all
it
right.
just
Yeah, but
in another list of films released by E24 recently, where yes, they have big actors and it's meant to draw more audiences to show that's kind of unconventional, weird, but then when you see it there's not really much to it, right? Similar to Opus. I have a feeling that's the
yeah,
same case with Death of a Unicorn.
yeah. The script. The main problem is the script. Like the script, I really felt it. Not that the core plot that bad. It's there, whatever. But they're ready to punch up the jokes. like what they're trying to say, and then it's so straightforward and not that interesting, and it just fell flat. That's my main problem. It just kind of fell flat for me. So that's about it. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. Like it just. I don't know what I was missing with the humor. If I was missing some jokes or I didn't get the jokes, then fine. But like I was just watching it and thinking, all right, what's this about? Like that is about it. There's a joke, and it's such an obvious, like straightforward metaphor of what they're trying to do and say. With it. Now, this again, something like this would I could let slide if it was skewed to a young audience, but there's a lot of violence in this, so it's not that. It's supposed to be 84 film, so I don't know. I wish I got a smarter film. That's how I felt about
And
it.
also it's a R-rated film, which didn't really catch me by
Right,
surprise, right? But with the whole family unicorn dynamic thing, I was like, all right, they ought to be doing something very dark and subversive, right? But
right.
but judging
No,
for what you tell me, they didn't really do much, you know. But yeah,
no.
what you gonna do? But yeah, what would you rate Death of a Unicorn?
Yeah, like I, again, didn't hate it. It was like particularly offensive or like just disappointed. I'm feeling charitable and probably give it like a 6. I really wish I really wish he just punched it up. That's why the whole thing just felt like it's like they could have punched this up a little more for me. So that's about it. Nothing not bad by any stretch of imagination. It's just really solid stuff, all things considered. But yeah, that's about it. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, boy. What going on with E24 this year, boy? You know, like I know we
So
still early into the year, man, but no really big
which
hits per se
okay,
this year.
yeah, which movie was supposed to come out with that? They were supposed to have a movie with Thing, right?
With
With
who?
Lizzo, I think. Lizzo, is supposed to have a musical. Was that? Am I confusing it with something?
I've been hearing that she is.
I saw a trailer and it's not, which movie it is? It's supposed to be a musical, but it kind of like Avenue Q.
I didn't
With,
see it, but I
with
was
Muppet.
hearing stuff about Lizzo being in a film soon enough, right? Yeah, I just don't know what it is though.
Yeah, that is one I'm kind of excited for, but it look like it will fall flat because again, it's more all gimmick and it have no meat under it kind of thing.
Yeah,
So I kind of worried about that for that sense. However,
yeah.
we'll see.
All right then. Well, yeah. Moving on. All right, so sticking with Star Wars and Star Wars, the let me touch briefly on Tales of the Underworld, which is the third season of the Tales series that has been going on annually, you know, courtesy of Lucasfilm and Disney Plus, right? Last year I talked about Tales of the Sith, which believe it or not, I thoroughly enjoyed though, you know, even though compared to the last season, which is Tales of the Jedi, yeah, was significantly darker, right? And it makes sense because it's about the Sith, right? So so I am not like a big Star Wars nerd to stop what I doing and go on Reddit and be like, oh, you know, Dave Filoni is ruining the Star Wars universe with his shows and all that kind of stuff, right? But I think that when it comes to these animated series here, whether it's Tales or whether it's The Bad Batch, which I absolutely enjoyed. Actually, the third and final season, which dropped last year, made it to my honorable mentions as far as favorite TV shows of last year goes, right? But I think that Dave Filoni does do like a great job as far as like the animated stuff, right? You know, again, agree to disagree, right? But I think that he does a great job, right? And I am happy to report that yes, he is still doing a great job, right? Especially with this new season here of Tales, right? Which is called Tales of the Underworld, right? So what this season does here compared to last season, right? So like in the last season, there were two story arcs, right? But they were sort of split it up in such a way, if I'm not mistaken, that you might get the first two of one arc in you might like the first two episodes will just be focused on one character, and then the third episode will be on the second character whose arc will follow, and then you'll just sort of switch it back and forth near the end, right? In this case here, it's split down the middle. So the first half of the season is on one character, second half is on another character. I thought that's really smart, makes a lot of sense, right? You know? So in this case, the first arc, or I should say the first half, is set on the character of Asajj Ventress, who admittedly is not
All
a
right, okay.
character that I am.
I know she was in this.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't know
No,
all things Ventress, but
no, yeah, she's a Clone Wars character mostly. The Tartakovsky Clone Wars introduced her for the first
yeah.
time, I think. And
Oh,
then
okay. Because I was trying to
she showed
remember.
up in there.
Oh, so she was in the other Clone Wars series. Okay,
The new one, yeah, the
right,
later one, that canon one, you already the Tartakovsky one don't count as canon, but this one is canon.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
Right, right.
I
Well,
keep this
well,
track.
good thing you bring up that because admittedly, I have not watched the entirety of Clone Wars. Unfortunately, I just didn't get the time. I started, like, I think I watched just the first season and that was it, but I just never got around to watching the rest of it, right? You know? So I'm not too familiar with Ventress, but I know of her and her role, right? And yes, well, she is established, for those who don't know, she's like the top assassin for Count Dooku, right? So it's set up there, right? But yeah, where this arc, right? Again, these first 3 episodes is set up, she is dead. And because, forgive me again, folks, I don't know all the lore when it comes to Star Wars, right? So I really don't know how she died, but it's just established that she's dead, right? And slight spoiler, a accomplice of hers pretty much pretty much buries her, but is in this sort of, yeah, you see her in this sort of like a Lazarus pit kind of scenario. Yeah, even right down to the water itself being green, right? And she's about to be buried there, right? And then when she's there, and the accomplices leave, right? Yeah, a friend of hers, that's the best way I could sum it up, right? From, well, like a force ghost basically, like, right, revives her and pretty much tells her, you have this second chance at life, right? So it's up to you what you want to do. You want to stay dead, or you want to be reborn, or sorry, you want to go back, you want to continue living your life now. And of course she continues with that, right? So yeah, she goes about going on this quest pretty much to take down this particular individual, right? But in the process, she runs into this young Jedi, right? I don't want to call him a Padawan because it's never really established if he is a Padawan or not, but he is a Jedi and young, right? He's a young Jedi, right? And he is looking for something called the path, right? Where at the stage of where the story is set, yeah, this is where the Empire is pretty much wiping out all the Jedi, right? So I am assuming, again, not first in all things Star Wars, that this is roughly around the time when, Order 66 was executed. I'm assuming it's around that time. So it's probably in the middle of episode 3, or maybe at the tail end of episode 3 and before we get to episode 4, right? That's my assumption. But yeah, there's this particular part where basically all these Jedi have to go. So it's like an exodus for them now, to be officially free from the Empire, right? And that's what he's looking for. And he just sort of kind of conveniently stumbles onto Ventress, and she's going about her own mission as well. But yeah, together they sort of team up, and they have, like, basically a few adventures, right? Well, 3 adventures to be precise, right? And what I will say, I do like the considerably lighter tone that we get here, right? Because you take it, Ventress Sith character is going to be super dark, right? Similar to like how the last season was, like that season in particular, Tales of Sith, boy, that was really dark, but I enjoyed it for that. I really like the fact that they really went into some deep dark corners into it, right? Yeah, it was edgy, but it was good edgy, right? But I like that in this case, the tone was rather light, right? Yeah, I guess it has to do with this young Jedi being involved with her, and kind of just the chemistry between the two of them. I thought would, right? But again, is this person who this Sith warrior who's hell bent on revenge, and then she teams up with technically the enemy, right? And together they form this sort of like this bond, if you will, right? This union, if you will, right? And it works, right? If I just have one gripe, because I want to keep things as spoiler free as possible, it does not end the way how I thought it was going to end, right? I'll put it like this, right? It ends where you could see more further adventures of these characters in future installments. But the thing is, I don't know if we do get another season of Tales, if we're going to see more adventures of Ventress and this Jedi character. I'm not too sure, right? Or if, Lucasfilm's Rel Dread, if you will see them in other films, right? Maybe in live action. Who knows? I guess we'll see, right? But that's one amazing thing about the world of Star Wars, right? Where yes, you could see these characters in other forms or other media, in other installments or other films or whatever it is. You could see what happens afterwards, right? But it's just where this particular story stops. I'm a little concerned as to, yeah, why, like it just sort of stops at a certain point, which is cool. But I'm like, all right, like where we're gonna see how are we gonna be able to see what happens next, right? I don't know, right? And again, don't know Star Wars lore, so I don't know what even happened to Ventress at all, right? So somebody had to tell me what happened to Ventress after that point, after her revival, if you will, right? But yeah, it was a decent enough story, yeah, again, this yeah, sort of like this odd couple kind of thing, a Sith character meeting a Jedi character, and all these adventures, all that kind of stuff. So it works for the most part, right? But honestly, I felt that the arc that really stands out more than that one is the arc that centers on Cad Bane, right? Because what this story
Right.
does,
He,
what
he,
this
he shows up. Yeah, this is the guy who showed up in the kind of cowboy guy, right?
yes, that cowboy guy who was
Yeah, he
in
showed up in
the
Boba Fett.
Clone
Yeah.
Wars. Yeah, he was in Clone Wars. No, he showed up in Mandalorian. I had to remember that. I was like, was he on Boba
Okay.
Fett or was he on Mandalorian? It's like, nope, he
Okay.
was on
Okay.
Mandalorian that last season. I'll never
Okay. Okay.
forget that. And that was a
Right.
big
Right.
deal. And people were nuts like, oh, can't be in
Right.
live action. What? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 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 Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what they do here, right? And this was what I kind of knew I was expecting them to do something like this, right? Where how with Ventress you see, oh, this is like like this is Ventress 2.0. So you see how her life progresses from when she dies, right? Here they do something really smart now, where you see, yeah, the beginnings of Cad Bane, how he becomes Cad Bane. And I like that it's set up where he's a kid, right? He's a urchin, right? Him and his friend, they live on the street, they digging in, garbage, bins looking for food, all that kind of stuff, right? And the world that they are in, right? It's this sort of noirish kind of, let me just say, like this world where, yeah, you have a bunch of gangsters about all that kind of stuff, right? So I like that just right out the gate, right? They are touching, they're going into noir crime territory with this, right? But what I like though is that, yes, when you see Cad Bane, you're thinking, all right, he's supposed to be in a western, so why is he in this circa 40s but futuristic gangster setting? Why are we seeing this, right? But then as the story progresses, right? Oh no, we have not forgotten about the western stuff. So slight spoiler, in the final episode, in the last part of this arc, that's where you get the western stuff, and it actually makes sense, right? So as this neo-noir crime drama western hybrid, I think that this arc absolutely works, right? But yeah, as I said, this is the beginnings of Cad Bane, and this minor spoilers, but just kind of laying on the story. You see him as a kid, right? And then he meets his superior, who looks like how he will look like when he gets older, and he brings him into this world of crime and all that kind of stuff, right? And then the second
Right.
story
Right.
is where a friend of his who was arrested in the previous episode, he becomes an officer of the law, right? So, like, bringing in the Western element now, he will eventually become the marshal of the same town, right? And then, well,
Right.
it's like him going up against his old friend, right? Who become a criminal. That will be Cad Bane, because he now calls himself by that name, right? But then it ends now with him being arrested. And then the third episode, swear to God, literally plays out like a great homage to High Noon Dread, because you have Cad's friend now, who is now Marshall. He overhears, oh, Cad has been released from prison, and now we hear that he's gonna come back into town and exact his revenge on me. So now you have the townspeople like, oh my god, Cad be coming back. He going after
Right.
this fella because the friend, and he stabbed him in the back and all that kind of stuff. That is the premise of High Noon. That's where it is, right? Where you have this marshal and these guys going up after him, and he wants support, right? But all the townspeople like, no, we don't want to help you, and you kind of a coward. You running away from you ain't no tough guy, blah blah blah. And you see how that plays out. And where it ends, I thought was brilliant, right? And I like that where it stops off, you kind of understand, yeah, just why the character is the way he is, right? So he's not
Right.
as ruthless as you might think, but but at the same time, you cross the man, there's consequences, right? So yes, admittedly, this is the better arc, just in terms of the structure, the tone of it. I thought it works. It is still on a slightly light-hearted kind of tone, right? So it's not as dark as Tales of the Sith, right? This these two arcs in general don't even match the darkness that we get there, right? But it still have that grit to it. It still have that grimy vibe to it, right? And I really dug that. But for me, why I really dug this arc the most, right, is just the genres that they play with. They play with, right? The gangster, crime, western stuff. It blends very well, right? But it's within the world of Star Wars, and it's just giving us the backstory of a fan favorite character, right? And yeah, you kind of understand understand why he is this cool, calculated badass that we knew him for, right? But yeah, as a whole, yeah, this season of Tales really worked for me, right? Even though I still enjoy the second season more because of just the dark directions that they went with it, just how they touch on the characters, just the darkness they went into. That genuinely surprised me. I didn't think that Filoni and his team was going to go that far, but I was like, oh, wow, okay, we go in there, all right? But yeah, in this case, it's safe, right? But it still has that sort of edgy, sort of TVPG vibe to things, right? But overall, they're both arcs, are enjoyable for the most part. But yeah, I would admit, yes, the Caribbean one is the better of the two, right? But that's not to say that the Ventress one isn't enjoyable as well, right? So it's and I'll close this, right? One thing I do like about these Tales stories, right, is that it always feels like it's always centered on legacy. It's always centered on an older character having to guide a younger character. It's a matter of whether the younger character will follow in that older character's footsteps or not, right? So you see that sort of through line throughout these 3 seasons here, right? I like how they explore that in these different ways here in this season,
Right.
right? So that was really cool, right? But yeah, I would say if you've enjoyed the first 2 seasons, you'll enjoy this one, right? And well, I mean, if you're well, all right. So by the time this review comes out, of course, Star Wars Day will be no more, right? But I would still say if you do get a chance and you're just looking for something new as far as Star Wars content goes, yeah, by all means, check it out, man. It took me about roughly an hour and a half to watch all 6 episodes because yeah, each episode clocks in about 15 minutes or so. But yeah, it's a tight, easy binge, man. And again, if you really enjoy the Tales series, you'll enjoy this one. And in particular, if you enjoy the Star Wars animated series, especially the ones that, yeah, pull their visual inspiration from Clone Wars. So, if you like that style of, yeah, let me just say visual storytelling, then yeah, you will enjoy the season here, right? So whether you are a diehard fan or casual, I do think that there is enough in this season here that you'll enjoy, right? Especially if you just enjoy Star Wars for just the entertainment factor that it always offers, right? So yeah, for me, I'll give this a like 3.5 out of 5, man. It's worth checking out. It's worth checking out, right? Personally, I still think that the second season Tales of the Sith was better. I think that it is the best season so far, right? But this one is still enjoyable, man, right? So
Right.
yeah, I say definitely check out Tales of the Underworld.